Welcome to Fintech Daydreaming, the podcast that dives into the world of banking technologies and the ever-changing landscape of fintech companies. We bring you real-life examples from global and local thought leaders, as well as experts working within the financial industry, and seek out the best stories from the front lines of financial services innovation, where dreams of industry pioneers meet reality. Hosted by Krogdahl and Ville Sointu. This is Fintech Daydreaming.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Fintech Daydreaming. And this time we are joined by Janne from Helsinki Fintech Farm. So with that, it's another episode of Nordic Fintech Highlights, where the three of us will dive into what has been interesting, what has been hot, what has been bad, and what has been not in the world of fintech and banking technology in the Nordics. We've had a little bit of a break. We were all off on summer vacation. So whilst we are going to dive into some news articles from the recent month, we will probably ask Janne as well to give us a little bit of a highlight and a look around at what's been happening whilst the rest of us has been sitting on a beach, drinking some nice drinks and enjoying some relaxed time. I'm Paul Krogdahl. I will be your host for this episode, but as always, and we always say this, but this is a partnership, a two-man show. We can never do this alone. And obviously with that, I've got Ville with me. So Ville, how are you?
I'm doing good. Since we're already at episode 2 of this season, it's officially we're deep into autumn, even though some people might disagree because they're still on their summer vacations. But yeah, we are officially in autumn, even though right now the sun is shining and everything is nice. But we take these things very literally. So it is autumn now because it's season time.
But it's actually an interesting dynamic. Us here in the Nordics, we tend to, or particularly in Finland, we go off on summer vacation almost directly after midsummer. But as you start moving further south in Europe and even the UK, they tend to take summer vacations more now in August when we're all coming back and getting engaged and eager to attack. So we end up, particularly for us that work across Europe and even wider, we end up with a very extended period of relaxation. It's almost a free gift.
It is, and indeed, I tend to take my summer vacation in the beginning of the summer, so that extends it even further. So yeah, it is. It's interesting that how little actually happens in July and even August, even though things are starting to get busier now. In August, obviously, here in the Nordics, but yeah, outside of the Nordics, it's quite quiet.
And of course, being a Nordic Fintech Highlights episode, Janne, fantastic to have you with us again. How was your summer break?
Summer break was good. Spent all my vacation in Finland. First, it was not so nice weather, but then later in July, it was actually pretty nice. Quite much on summer cottage and in the archipelago. And now in August, I've been spending quite a lot of time dealing with the customer service of various banks.
Dealing with the customer service of various banks. I've had some interesting stories and experiences with customer services from banks, even the Nordic ones. But anything here you want to share with our listeners, or do you want to keep it ominous?
Well, yeah, no. If we don't mention any names, but other bank had closed my credentials because I hadn't delivered them all the required KYC information, and they had very cleverly kind of hidden the request messages in the mailbox in between all the commercial messages, so it was impossible to spot that, hey, my account is going to get shut down. And then actually my other bank credit card stopped working, and it took a week or two, and then I sent them a message, hey, what is this? And then they told that, hey, we try to fix it by the end of August, so no rush there.
No, yeah, you don't need your money. I mean, why we want to give you any credit line here? It reminds me quite a lot of the experience I had with one of the Nordic banks, or actually my girlfriend had, whilst we were in Spain last February and she lost her card. There seems to be a sort of laid back attitude that, oh, you can't get to your money. It's okay. We'll get it fixed within the next couple of weeks. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. Always have at least a couple of banks. So
yeah, I think that's another trend that we're seeing, aren't we? That most people these days will have a multi-homing attitude to their banking relationships and seek out multiple bank relationships and accounts, etc., rather than relying on just one single vendor. But I'm wondering here, Janne, as we're talking about relaxing and having summer break and the extended time between the Nordics and Europe, I'm assuming that one demographic that haven't been slowing down for summer has been all of these fintech startups and entrepreneurs eager to take over the world and disrupt the banking. So maybe you could share with us a little bit, whilst we have been sunning ourselves on the beach, what has been happening in the Nordics around the fintech space?
yes, you're absolutely right. So even though it's been holiday month July and then June also maybe a bit more quiet in many ways. So there's been a lot of things happening in the industry. So funding wise, actually were 5 funding rounds in June and still 2 in July. So things definitely going forward. And then the biggest boom has been in the M&A space. So there's been a lot of different various kind of transactions, especially between fintechs. So there's clearly some consolidation going on. Last month, especially, we saw a few fintech companies from the Benelux countries acquiring competitors from the Nordics, but then also vice versa. So one Nordic company acquiring their competitor from Netherlands, and then particularly interesting has been the Nordic banks. So they have been now starting to acquire kind of niche banks or fintechs. So there's clearly some exciting things happening there. So it's very very interesting to see what's like the long plan here. What will this be a continuing trend? But now in last month we saw that LF Bank from Sweden acquired Savr and Swedbank acquired Stabelo. So very very interesting news.
It's very interesting dynamics at the moment with the financial situation that we're seeing and geopolitical situation as well. There is probably a lot of smaller financial institutions that are feeling the pressure, even though they maybe have been cash rich. And I can understand the big banks potentially looking at that in some way as a easy low-hanging fruit to acquire the smaller banks. It does then leave them with integration and technology capabilities that they need to deal with after that. But what do you think, Ville?
Well, first of all, is it just me, or is this a busier summer for fintech news than we've seen previous years? Because it feels like there's a lot of things just happened during July and June. And as we just talked about in the beginning, usually nothing happens in the Nordics during those months. This feels different. I don't know if that's just me getting old or, but it really kind of feels like a lot of really important things happening.
Money never sleeps.
Yeah, especially when it's stable coins, like we learned in the last episode. So yeah, maybe this kind of more heated global political situation is also reflecting in this in the market, where everybody remains active in despite of holiday periods. I will miss if we're gonna start losing our completely silent Julys even here in the Nordics, but we'll see how that works out. But yeah, to the point of fintechs getting acquired to banks. I mean, we've seen this before. I mean, it seems to be going in cycles. At one point, the banks are buying fintechs. We've seen a lot of those. We saw BBVA buying Holovi, for example, from Finland, and then how Holovi went back to being independent. The owners bought it back. We saw Bank Simple being consumed by Santander. So again, that happened some time ago. That then stopped for a while, and then now it seems like the trend is back here in the Nordics. I noticed the same trend as you mentioned there, Janne. So interesting how cyclical things tend to be.
Yeah, actually big question here is that now banks buying fintechs. So are they like are the banks eager to buy and invest money, or are the fintechs having difficult times, so they just have to sell? So that's a kind of a key question here.
I think it's a combination of many things. First of all, there's the resource crunch. So the banks desperately need good people to work on these complex problems as the regulation is moving forward, and there's more demand for better services from customers. So of course, you want the talent. That's one thing. Then here in the Nordics, it's been fairly rough financially for many companies for some time now. So again, it is a good situation for cash-rich banks to come in and take these good people and resources and IPR potentially from this company. So yeah, I think it's again the planets are aligning in a certain way. So we're seeing this trend come back because of that.
And let's be honest, a lot of founders will start up their fintechs and startup companies with an ambition to be acquired at some point in time. So maybe this is just a timing thing. Maybe there's a large number of fintechs that started up at the right time and they've now come to maturity and all the stars have aligned and they are selling themselves to the banks at a profit, getting ready for them to go to the beach and relax.
Yeah, I guess the next cycle starts once the earn-out periods are out for these fintech founders, and they're going to start their next thing, and then we're going to see another cycle.
Absolutely. But as always, we tend to ensure that we put some lightheartedness into our episodes, and we do that with our good but bad jokes. And as has become tradition now, the guests always bring the joke, and Janne is our standing repeat guest. So Janne, we'd love to know if you've got a joke to make us snigger.
Unfortunately, yes, as always.
Fantastic. Let us hear it.
So, why don't horses use online banking?
I have no idea.
Because they don't have a stable connection.
Oh, we're gonna have so many stable jokes this season, I'm sure.
Thank you, Janne. Thank you. You always find a way of bringing a good but bad joke. So thank you for that. I think I've run out of jokes, so it's good to have you with us. Thank you. But we digress, and let's bring us back on track. We tend to pick up a news article that has been in the newsletter that was published at the beginning of the month for the previous month by Helsinki Fintech Farm. And we will continue that trend. I think that it would be interesting to maybe start with you this time, Ville. What caught your attention in the latest newsletter that came out from Helsinki Fintech Farm?
Yeah, aside of the fintech acquisitions by Nordic banks, which was interesting in itself, I did pick up a bit of a more techier article that caught my eye, and we're going to come back to why after I kind of describe it. So a Swedish fintech company called Zimpler that offers pay-by-bank solutions for merchants mostly, basically allowing them to do account-to-account transactions between their customers and them. So they're able to do both payouts and then accept payments directly from accounts. So i.e. it's kind of a PSD2 aggregator, but they're only focused on payments. So they don't do, for example, account information like other players like Tink do, and they are indeed laser focused on the payments part of this. You might know Zimpler from many services. They are especially popular, seems to be for whatever reason, in Finland. Many Finnish companies, or at least many companies offering services in Finland, are using Zimpler for this, basically allowing account-to-account transactions between their customers and themselves. And the leading examples that most people will recognize are actually online casinos. So this automatically puts us in a very interesting territory because, again, online casinos are not exactly the types of companies that are typically accepted by banks. So Zimpler has found an interesting niche. They do have a vast array of other customers as well, but it seems like their best known customers are indeed online casinos that then we'll be able to have instant payouts, for example, into SEPA bank accounts from the casino if people win anything in these casinos. So that's Zimpler. So again, but what is the news? So the news is that they have launched a new solution called Zimpler ID Plus. Zimpler ID Plus is a way for them to basically reuse KYC information for onboarding into different merchants. So what that means in effect is that they use technology called passkeys. So again, they store information or a token in your device or your browser or your desktop. And then with that, it kind of allows you to do almost like a single sign-on. So for all the merchants that use Zimpler, the customer doesn't need to be onboarded or KYC'd again, as long as that passkey is issued on the device that you're using it for. It's kind of like when you have a persistent Facebook session, you don't need to log into Facebook every time you open your browser or open the Facebook app. It's a persistent session, if you will. And with that KYC token, or the ID, Zimpler ID Plus token or passkey, the merchant is able to securely and in a compliant manner both pay and get paid by this customer. This technology is quite familiar actually from things like both MasterCard and Visa have a concept called click to pay, which basically is using a passkey to store your card credentials so that you're able to do a one-click checkout from many merchants. For instance, my bank launched that quite recently. So again, familiar technology and starting to get to be more used now, and I think I find this quite interesting. The one part that I speculate about is that since we're going to have these kind of identity passkeys now by different payment service providers available, and potentially wallet providers, are we going to start to see requests for banks to start to accept that as strong customer authentication at some point in time? There is no regulatory obligation for banks to do that, but I can see that as a possibility potentially in the future if the banks want to do that. But anyway, interesting times. Also has an interesting link to the EU identity wallet conversation as well. But before we go on down that rabbit hole, what do you think, Paul?
There's an awful lot of different things coming together here, right? Like you just said, there is a storm around digital wallets. There's a storm around identity. Everybody's trying to play in this space. Your identity is something that becomes a very critical credential for you in the future going forwards as well. There is already infrastructure for identity in Finland and in the Nordics. They're trying to build that in Europe. This feels to me like the brewing of a perfect storm. And it leads again a little bit back to the last episode we had, although that was talking very much around stable coins, the whole infrastructure around this, the wallets, the payment capabilities, making this smoother, easier, faster for the consumers. It is very interesting. I actually, for one, think this is good. We need this sort of disruption. We need this sort of innovation to come and help us to rethink how we manage identity. David Birch is right in the middle of all of this, right? We've had him as a guest before. Maybe we need to have him come back because there's so much happening here around identity that I really think this is interesting. This is critical. I look forward to seeing how this progresses. I, for one, really believe the growth of mobile wallets is critical. So really good, really interesting. I also want to know whether this creates a whole new payment infrastructure or payment rail between consumers and merchants. You're saying account to account with identity. Lots of interesting stuff here to unpack. And I think maybe we could do an episode just on this. But how about you, Janne? I mean, how do you feel about all of this?
Yes, so definitely when we talk about getting traction for new alternative ways, such as A2A infrastructure, so the new option for consumers' perspective has to be definitely you know at least as good as the previous one. So there's no chance people will start to use account-to-account payments if it's even trickier than the card payments. So now something similar to the click to pay is definitely something that is needed if we want people to start using account to account and different rails. So definitely good news. And then of course how the big picture will kind of start to shape out. We're seeing a very interesting developments here, and kind of something interesting is definitely cooking.
Yeah, and it's funny that you also got reminded of what David Birch was talking about this topic, because one of my favorite quotes from David is that payments equals accounting plus identity. So this is exactly that, right? So you have the accounts and then account to accounts, and then you have identity now, and that equals into payments. So identity has always been in the middle, in the central part of payments, and now we're kind of extending out or building on top of that identity credential. And I really look forward to seeing how this links into the future EU digital identity wallet, should it become reality. I mean, it will probably will, but we'll see what form it will take. But because there's an argument to be made as well that once the merchants have the EU digital identity credentials available for all their customers, they don't need a Zimpler credential anymore. They could just use the EU digital identity. Of course, Zimpler provides more than that. They provide the payment, which the EU DI doesn't directly. So a bit of a different thing. But for onboarding, we might see people or companies and merchants moving towards the EU digital identity wallet in the future. But again, interesting moves, and this is like a private sector solution compared to a public sector solution. So it's always an interesting dynamic to follow.
It would also be interesting, I think, to see some updated statistics on how many people rely on Apple Pay and Google Pay as their primary, because let's be honest, Apple Pay and Google Pay also has an identity token within it, right? So again, an interesting perfect storm brewing, I think. And I, for one, am really looking forward to seeing how this plays out. Okay, on to the next one. Janne, what did you pick up as being your favorite interesting news from last month?
Yes, so I already started with the transactions, banks buying fintech. So let's look a bit deeper into the case where Länsförsäkringar Bank, let's call it LF Bank, is acquiring Savr. So Savr is a digital platform for trading mutual funds and shares. And so yeah, if you're not familiar with the LF Bank, so it's actually a quite a big name in Sweden, around 4 million customers, built out of 23 regional insurance companies. So big domestic player in Sweden. And now they bought 100% of Savr. Savr, basically a investment platform founded in 2019, and they had a big bold goal of creating digital first investment platform for consumer users. I think they had already over 100,000 users. So yeah, now after this transaction, so LF Bank definitely has an edge as a traditional bank. They were able to get new top-notch technology, also some knowledge and people. And of course the competition is quite interesting here, because we of course have the big traditional banks who have their own stuff like Nordea or SEB or so on. Then we also have, especially in Sweden, we have these quite big niche banks in this field like Avanza and Nordnet. And then globally, we see more and more of these eToro, Robinhood, Revolut kind of companies entering the market. So now LF Bank is stepping into the game with this strategic acquisition. And then, yeah, again, for Savr, was this their, ultimate end game goal? or not. But however, this happened, and do you think this is well, from both perspectives, does LF Bank have an edge after this transaction, or and what do you think about sort of what could have they done differently or so?
There's definitely a big boom of retail investments happening.
Yeah.
I think most banks are getting into this space, but Ville, you're a clever cookie with money and investments. What's your view on this?
Well, I think it's first of all a really good move by LF Bank from my perspective, because so what's changed? If you are a customer of a traditional Nordic bank and the services that they offer for you to invest into things, into like shares, funds, other things, they have been fairly stable for a very long time. Even the digital services, they look nice, they're simple, and it all works well. But then we started to see players like we saw eToro, Robinhood, Revolut, others coming into this market, basically allowing to do fractional share trading instantly in all the markets around the world. Everything became much more accessible. So again, this threshold for investing was suddenly lowered to be very, very low, because you could find, again, you can buy fractional shares, you can trade them in real time, there's all automatic tax reporting, everything is in place. Then that changed the game. So the banks were immediately left behind because these things just simply didn't exist in traditional Nordic banks. And this clearly is a way for LF Bank to basically leapfrog that element and move straight into the world of Revoluts and eToros and others. Again, there always remains the question on how well this integration will work. Are they going to try to embed that into the overall UX of the bank? Do they keep it as a separate application? Again, interesting things to see. Be as it may, they got the talent, they got the team, they got the technology, and now they have the platform to do all these things. So again, a good move. The integration always remains a question, but still move to the right direction, I think.
I'm going to step up a level on all of this. Absolutely. For Länsförsäkringar, this is a great move. There is a need for the more incumbent banks to step into the future and align themselves with capabilities being offered by fintechs and neobanks. You have to stay relevant. You have to continue satisfying and delighting your customers. So I understand that, and I agree with you completely, Ville. Smart move, good move. Keep building these capabilities. One of the things that I want to do, though, is to sort of step back a little bit. You will know that I like to get very focused on things like financial literacy. And one of the things that I worry about in all of this is the fact that financial management has become more and more complex. Robinhood had this problem early on. They got beaten up for making things too complicated, a little bit too easy, and using gamification to maybe entice consumers to overspend, overinvest, and not understanding the risk portfolio that they were taking on. If it's very easy to go and buy whatever shares you want, buy them as fractional shares, engage to a certain degree in a gamification of, oh, isn't this exciting? And look, I can earn a little bit more money. You add to that influences from social media that maybe don't give you the truth. I mean, financial advice from Jim Jam on TikTok, who maybe doesn't actually know what he's talking about and doesn't care because he's just looking for the number of followers to grow, could end you in a very bad situation. So I actually would like to see some of these incumbent banks like Länsförsäkringar, etc., to go one step further. There's an educational element here as well. Yes, make all of this available. Yes, make it easier to invest. Yes, give that enrichment to Joe Blogs on the street to say, hey, I want to buy some shares in something. Yeah. But at the same time, put a little bit of friction back into it, put a little bit of education into it, guidance and help and everything else. I mean, getting on to my soapbox for a minute, I got contacted by my assigned financial advisor from my main bank that I bank with, who contacted me and said, oh, I see you've got some money. I want to help you with some of your investments. And I said, yeah, absolutely. You can give me some advice, but I'm taking advantage of some of the capabilities at Revolut. To which the answer I got back was, oh, I maybe need to check a little bit more about this Revolut. Who is Revolut? And I, you know, please get
Oh,
up to speed on all of this. But absolutely, do all of this. Great news from Länsförsäkringar, but I want to see them go that one step further.
yeah, maybe just to build on that point, maybe the banks are the exact right places to run these types of things because if legacy banks are good at something, that's creating friction, right? So, complementary services, basically because again, I completely agree. For example, we saw Robinhood doing these kind of quote unquote tokenized private shares, for example, offering things like OpenAI share tokens, whereas then OpenAI was very quick to say that these are not OpenAI shares that you're buying on Robinhood. But if I'm a customer who goes to the investment portal and then I see, oh, OpenAI, oh, it's some kind of token. Well, it's here, I can buy it, number go up, I can buy it. But again, you don't know what you're doing. If you lose all of that friction, then there are a lot of questions on how do you actually keep the investors informed about where their money actually is going, and this is important, especially for these traditional banks like LF Bank is, for example. So yeah, I agree. Maybe this is the perfect combination, combining this risk and compliance from traditional banks, but still having a modern platform to run this in a responsible way. We will see.
We will do indeed, yes. But absolutely interesting developments, and I'd like to see more of this. Two news articles now that I think are very interesting, and I'd like to see more happening in this space. For me, I've picked up yet another incumbent bank partnering with a fintech, and I've stepped a little bit closer to our little internal world here. Nordea partnered with Mynt around delivering capabilities focused on credit cards for the SME market. Now, Mynt is a fantastic, interesting fintech. They are focused on the SME market space, and they cover the full customer journey capabilities. Everything from expense management to card payments, to the whole sort of economical capabilities that an SME might require. And they focus on reducing not only overhead, but the time and the complexity. So for Nordea to partner with them to enrich their capabilities towards the SME market space, I think is fantastic. There are two sort of elements that I think about with this. The one is I can see why Nordea is doing this, because this is a growing market space, the SME market space. It is an area that incumbent banks have struggled with in the past because it's complex. You have to treat an SME like a large corporate, and the banking processes haven't traditionally been able to deal with the SME space. At the same time, when I'm sitting there looking at it from a Nordea perspective, there are a number of players in the Nordics and even here in Finland that have started to focus their strategic intents towards the SME space. So this is a space where if Nordea doesn't do anything, and I would actually say the other incumbent banks in Finland as well don't do anything strategically, they're going to lose out very quickly, because SMEs are desperately looking for not just bank capabilities, but for the banks to almost act as their CFOs. They can't all have large financial teams. They want the banks to help them. And I think something with the capabilities that Mynt is delivering in partnership with Nordea is smart move, very smart move. It'll be interesting to see whether that will help Nordea to grow their SME captive audience or not, because I know being maybe a little bit unfair, Nordea has in the past been very risk averse compared to some of the other banks. So it'll be interesting to see how this grows. But again, I think this was a very interesting piece of news. I'm going to jump to Janne first, because Ville, you sit within the lion's head on this, so I'll let you come last on your view. But Janne, what do you think to this, being an SME yourself?
Yeah, I was really hoping and expecting to see something like this. So I've been repeating on this podcast that there's so much business and market potential in the SME space, only in the domestic markets, for instance. And now I think, let's say 5 to 10 years ago, it was very trendy to issue new consumer cards, and for the last 5 years we have seen a lot of these business expense management cards, which makes a lot of sense, obviously, but then again the incumbents have been completely out of this game, and I've been wondering like why. And this makes a lot of sense to partner up with a fintech company doing this, so bank can get their own share of the pie, and yeah, there's a plenty of issuers with good technology and potential, but then big company like Nordea has the muscles. So yeah, very excited to hear this news, and I hope to see also similar news from the other big banks.
You started this episode off by saying that you had your card frozen or not working. Was that your business card by any chance?
Well, yeah, I also had that because it was tied to my personal account. So yeah, but yeah, to on top of that, so yeah, I have a traditional bank where I have my business account, but then I'm using actually Zevoy, which is similar to Mynt, where we have the basic, expense management cards for the employees in our company. So, and there are plenty of similar companies like Mynt and Pliant and so on.
So with full transparency, Ville, you do actually work at Nordea, so we probably should share that with all the listeners. But what's your view on this, and any perspectives that you can bring?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I work in transaction banking in Nordea, which is the organization responsible for this partnership, among many other things. But so I'm very close to this. But I will try to maybe take a bit of an external view into this, steer away from the internal components of this setup, because again, you mentioned an important thing that we have talked about so many times, even in the podcast, which is that SME segment remains an underserved segment for financial services in the Nordics for a long time. Now, even though people are probably also bored of hearing how Revolut is coming and things like this, but I think this is a clear example of exactly that. The neobanks, the global neobanks, they're going to ultimately enter the Nordic market, and they will come, especially towards the SME segment, with tools that are far superior from what many of the Nordic banks offer today. So it only makes sense to enhance digital services, and this is a great example of that. So with Mynt, the expense management, the user experience, everything provided by that around these cards is modern, works, serves an underserved segment, and again is a bit of a no-brainer. Funnily enough, even though this is a partnership and the LF Bank one was an acquisition, it's pretty much the same dynamic here. Again, recognizing that these new types of services are becoming like a minimum thing to have for banks, based on this, how the neobanks have been offering these services around cards for a long time. So this is a good way of providing or getting a leapfrogging again faster time to market for these modern solutions than building, for instance, the similar capabilities in-house. Even that would take much longer time. So yeah, really happy for the people responsible for this part of the portfolio in Nordea, and looking forward to seeing how our customers will start using it.
It actually leads into another small point. I know that probably the world is bored of hearing me say this now, but I've been saying for such a long time that the future of banking will be dominated by platforms. And I think we're starting to finally see now banks realizing that having an ecosystem of partners to deliver capabilities is actually a faster time to market. It is less risky and sometimes easier to do than to try and rip your internal systems apart to implement the capabilities that you want to deliver to customers. So I think the future is very much ecosystem based, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this collaborative approach where banks will focus predominantly on what is their differentiator and competitive advantage, and let partners do everything else. So yes, very interesting. Okay, as always, we are running out of time. I think that was 3 very interesting news articles, and time is of an essence. We don't want our listeners to stay around for too long. Actually, we'd love for you to stay around for hours on end. Let's grab a beer, let's have a coffee, sit down and discuss the finer points in fintech and banking. But we will round this off for this time. But before we run off, Ville, was there any last thoughts or comments that you want to bring to the table?
Well, maybe just for the people watching on YouTube stream, don't be worried. The plant next to me is not eating me, it's just growing. So you'll be able to follow this drama of it growing next to me as we do more and more of these episodes. So I'm okay. That's the only thing I want to say.
Actually, there could be an opposite to this. Should that plant accidentally happen to die, you're going to end up with a whole load of, plant-loving vegans attacking you on the street. But apart from that, if people want to reach out to you, where can they find you, Ville?
On LinkedIn. I'm only there these days.
Only on LinkedIn these days. I like that consolidation approach. We are sort of following the same across the board here. Janne, anything that you feel you want to add to the discussion?
Good to be back after the summer, and I'm excited. I think from here to next summer, we'll see again many interesting developments in the market, but still, let's not hold our breaths. It usually takes always time when big things happen in this industry. But yeah, also feel free to follow me and us on LinkedIn, Janne Salminen, and then Helsinki Fintech Forum as well. And also remember to visit our events. We have something usually on a monthly basis.
Absolutely, yes. And for myself, I think all I would like to say is we are kicking off what seems to be an exciting second half of the year. We had a slow start for the first half of the year. This is getting exciting now. We're seeing an awful lot of things happening. A lot of what we've been talking about for a longer period of time are starting to bear fruit, be that ecosystems, partnerships, even PSD3 and PSR is about to hit us and everything else. So very interesting time ahead. You can reach me just like Ville and Janne on LinkedIn. I also am consolidating. I've had enough of trying to jump around on too many platforms. So LinkedIn is the best one. And obviously, as the podcast, you can find us on our website, fintechdaydreaming.com, or you can find us on LinkedIn. And I actually believe we might have something on Facebook as well, but LinkedIn is the preferred place. We will be back in 2 weeks' time. Until then, if you've enjoyed this episode, then please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe. And like I always say, share this with one of your colleagues. If you've got a friend or a colleague that you think might find what we are talking about interesting, please share it. Help us to grow, because as we grow, we get more excited. And as we get more excited, we want to bring you more and continue the discussions. So, like I said, hit the subscribe, hit the like. Until next time, this has been Fintech Daydreaming.
This is Fintech Daydreaming.